Good evening, professionals. In our seventh corporate law webinar series, we've been discussing about the SEBI LODR regulations, where initially we saw the principles governing the LODR disclosure and how there is a shift, paradigm shift rather, from listing agreement to listing regulations, and what are the obligations of a listed entity and which are defined as specified securities, where you have equity shares, convertible preference shares, convertible debentures. And then we moved on in part 1 to discuss about the obligation of compliance officer and when it is mandatory to have registrar and share transfer agent. And then in part 2, we discussed about the committees, the roles and responsibilities, various terms of reference of all the statutory committees as provided in LODR, together with the roles and responsibilities of the board of directors. And then in part 2, we discussed about the corporate governance requirements, obligation of independent directors, obligation of employees, including key managerial personnel, senior management. And then we discussed in part 3 about all your significant disclosures in the corporate governance schedule. And then we discussed about what is a material event or information which is very vital for any listed entity as provided in your regulation 31, where you will be providing your shareholding pattern, 31A, where there is going to be a conversion or reclassification of promoter to public and public to promoter, and what are the conditions to be complied with for you to make an application to stock exchange. And of course, it is the prerogative of the stock exchange to provide you an approval while you are making a submission for reclassification from promoter to public. And of course, for conversion from public to promoter, there shall be an open offer made under SAST regulations, substantial acquisition takeover regulations. 32, we concluded with regulation 32 in the last part, where we discussed 32 shall be when there is a statement of deviation, like when you are going for further issue, which could be in the form of preferential issue, private placement, QIP, qualified institutions placement, rights issue, bonus issue. Whatever it is, when you are going to give the objects for which the fund is being raised in the offer document or information memorandum, you owe an explanation to your investors if there is going to be any deviation or variation from the objects which were defined there too. And in part 4 today, we are going to discuss about other key provisions starting from Reg 33, which talks about one of the vital information provided by all listed entities, which is your financial results, which is Regulation 52 for your NCDs or NCPRS on convertible redeemable preference shares. And we are going to also see 34, which is another important disclosure for all listed entities. When I say all listed entities, because there are several exemptions granted for certain listed entities, and when they are not falling under the specified securities, certainly they are exempt from chapter 4. And like that, financial result is going to be a key onerous responsibility for all the listed entities to submit. Hence, it is imperative for us to understand what are the requirements, statutory provisions under Reg 33, and 34, what are the contents in the annual report which you have to disclose, your corporate governance report, your MD&A, management discussion and analysis report, what are the annexes to your board's report, director's report, and what are the declarations to be provided by your CEO, CFO, affirming the compliance with your code of conduct, and what is the certificate that has to be provided by your practicing company secretary or a practicing chartered accountant confirming your corporate governance requirements. So all these key provisions we are going to discuss under Regulation 34. So annual report and its contents. And in 35, it is annual information memorandum. It is simple for us to comply, friends, because as may be prescribed by the board is what is stipulated in the regulation, which is yet to be prescribed. Thanks to Ms. Aishwarya for this detailed presentation, providing practical illustrations as well. And these are various legends used in today's presentation, friends. More importantly, we'll be discussing about Ind AS, IFRS, AS, GAAP, So which abbreviations we all are quite familiar with. Nevertheless, while you refer the presentation, this will be for your ready reference and use. And as discussed, today's outline will be financial results, annual report contents, business responsibility report, where it is mandatory. You're going to see also a practical example how Infosys makes a presentation of their BRR and annual information memorandum. Let's start with Rec 33, financial results. So financial results, we all are aware, friends. Could be your quarterly unaudited financial results or your audited financial results. And we are again aware, because of this COVID, there is an extension granted. Already there was an extension granted by SEBI circular dated 23rd March 2020, further to which very recent circular was issued on 24 June 2020, providing for further extension. And under Regulation 33, all listed entities are provided time till 31st July for submission of audited financial results. Otherwise, it is 60 days, which is your from the date of conclusion of your financial year, which is your 31st May. But now there is an extension granted due to COVID till 31st July. Likewise, under Regulation 52 as well, for NCDs, NCPRS, there is an extension granted till 31st July. Why I am comparing Reg 33 with Reg 52 is, friends, because Reg 33 is for your specified securities, which we already defined and saw the scope of specified securities. Under Reg 52, you will have provision only for NCDs, NCPRS. Regulation 33 talks about preparation of financial results. Preparation of financial results shall be on the basis of accrual accounting policy. What is accrual accounting policy, friends? It is the accounting policy where your revenue or expenditure is determined basis the transaction, and you are not considering whether the payment is provided, payment is actually spent, expenditure is already actually spent, or revenue is actually received. And in accordance with uniform accounting practices. Why do we need to adopt uniform accounting practices? These accounting practices shall be in conformity with your accounting standards, and they shall certainly conform to the true and fair view of your state of affairs of the financial statements. And hence, it is important that you maintain uniform standard and practices across, and also for your comparison purpose. And the quarterly and year-to-date results shall be prepared in accordance with your AS 25 or IAS 34, which talks about your interim financial reporting, which means your quarterly results shall always be in conformity with your interim financial results as reporting as provided in your IAS 34 when you are applying your Ind AS, or when it is GAAP, it is AS 25. And standalone financial results and consolidated financial results shall be prepared as per GAAP, and listed entity may also submit financial results as per IFRS as notified by IASB, your accounting standard board. We all are aware again that Ind AS is made mandatory in a phased manner, and why it says may also submit financial results is if you're not falling within that bracket and you're doing it under GAAP, still on a voluntary basis, you may do so under your listed financial results for publication as per the IFRS mode. And listed entity shall also submit the limited review report as provided by the auditors when it is a quarterly report, quarterly financial results, or audited report when it is annual audited financial results. And it shall be provided by an auditor who has subject himself to peer review. What is peer review, friends? Peer review is again for quality assurance, your standards are checked internally, more for the services which you render, and it is mandated by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and hence you have to ensure that your auditors have subjected themselves to the peer review. And we all know that the peer review process also, when the certificate is issued, there is an expiry date to it. So after 3 years, if it is not renewed, you have to ensure that before they submit the audited report for your financial results, you have to ensure that the validity is renewed and it is intact and live while they present this audited financial results to your listed entity. And listed entity shall make disclosures as specified in Part A of Schedule 4. So we have been discussing together with the regulation wherever there is the reference to the schedule. Likewise, for financial results, the reference is drawn to Schedule 4, where disclosure with regard to any change in the accounting policy, it shall be disclosed in accordance with your accounting standard, which is AS5, where it talks about your change in the accounting policy or prior period items, or AS8, again, which talks about your change in accounting policy as specified in accordance with your section 133, where section 133 clearly states that the standard shall be in accordance with the provisions of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India based on the recommendations issued by the central government and which is in conformity with the standards as approved by your board, NFRS. And if the auditor has expressed any modified opinion in respect of audited financial results, he shall disclose such modified opinion, and that shall also append to the financial impact which has in the modified opinion the quantified number. Say for example, your company has not provided for the interest which has to be paid with regard to borrowings from a financial institution. If auditor is going to give this opinion in his statement of impact on audit qualifications, which is the format as prescribed by SEBI, effective 27th May 2016. When this is being issued, he shall also quantify that if this finance cost is say X, to that extent, there is income which is shown on a higher amount, on a higher basis because of not providing for this finance cost. Second, because of this, there is an extra profit, or because of this, there is a loss to that extent. So he has to report not only the interest cost, but also its impact on the net profit and also its impact on the earnings per share on the company, so that the investors are well aware of what could be the impact if there is a modified opinion. And if there is any modified opinion, he shall include the same in his statement on impact of audit qualification. Friends, please remember, while SEBI LODR was notified in 2015, we had Form A for unmodified opinion and Form B for modified opinion. Now, this is substituted with the statement on impact of audit qualification, where there is a specified format prescribed by the SEBI circular, and there they have to specify before this audit qualification what was the quantum, and after providing for this audit qualification what is the quantum, and they have to report for each number, be it your income, expenditure, profit before after tax, earnings per share, total assets, liabilities. All these 7 items, they have to report the quantifiable amount before audit qualification and after audit qualification for people to determine the impact. And this statement shall be mandatorily signed by 4 parties. Who are they? Your CEO or managing director, CFO, your auditor, and more importantly, the chairman of the audit committee, because he is reviewing the financial results and then sends it to your board for recommendation. Audit qualification where the impact is not quantifiable. The management shall mandatorily make an estimate which shall be reviewed and reported by the auditor. In this example, when the finance cost is attributable some X or Y, that amount he will be providing, the auditor will be providing, and the management shall also quantify by way of an estimate as to what would be the impact. And this is mandatory, friends. And notwithstanding the above, the management may be permitted to not provide an estimate when it is on matters like going concern. Take the example of COVID. Due to pandemic, it would be very difficult for the management or the auditor to assess the impact, the material impact, given the wide impact because of this COVID. And there, the impact on the going concern, there is an exception that the estimate need not be provided, which is effective 1st April 2016. Not only that, when there is a sub judice matter, what is a sub judice matter, friends? When there is a matter which is under judicial consideration, which means it has gone to the court or tribunal, but the matter has still not come to public domain. Hence, the impact is not ascertainable. In these two cases, there is an exception, which means the management need not provide an estimate. Then, a note to the financial results shall also be appended by the listed entity if the auditor has expressed such modified opinion. Whether such modified opinion has been resolved or not, and if it is not resolved, then they owe an explanation as to why it is still not resolved, what are the steps taken by the management. For example, in a listed entity, when there is BRS, which is always showing that unreconciled status, and it is reflecting in every financial result, every quarterly financial result. Then, if there is a reduction in the unreconciled item, the management shall provide it by way of note. What are the steps taken for that reconciliation by the management? Because auditor has clearly provided that as a modified opinion stating that the company has not reconciled so many items and this is the amount, the quantum because of this BRS unreconciled item. In such a case, the management shall not only provide the estimate but also say what are the steps taken by them for reconciling these items. And if it is still not reconciled, then they may have to certainly carry it for every financial result unless it is nullified. And if the listed entity has changed its name in line with the new line of business, then it shall continue to carry that for a period of 3 years succeeding the date of change in its name. And the ratio of allocation is also well defined in LODR, friends. It says the tax expense between the new line of business vis-a-vis the other line of business shall be in accordance with the ratio of your PBT, subject to any exemption or deduction as the case may be. And where the listed entity discloses the following details when it has not commenced any commercial production or operation during the reportable period. During the reportable period means if it is going to be your quarterly results for the QTD 31st March 2020. Instead of submitting the financial results, the detail of amount raised by way of some proceeds of issue of shares, and then you have to say the portion which remains utilized or unutilized. You have raised say 100 crores and you have utilized for this particular project say 50%, which is 50 crores. You shall provide the detailed report on utilized 50 crores and unutilized amount and details of investment made. When you have utilized 50 crores and there is an investment made by the company to the extent of 15 crores in a plant, you shall provide those details. Brief description of the project which is pending completion. To the extent which is still pending, you shall provide a brief summary and what is the stage, the milestone accomplishment, and expected date of commencement of commercial production shall also be provided. And this shall be approved by the board based on the certification by CEO and CFO. Exceptional items shall be reported. Extraordinary items. So exceptional items, we always know PBT, profit before tax, before exceptional items, and then you record the actual PBT and then PAT after providing for your tax expenditure. And if there are any extraordinary items which are appearing only due to certain events which are happening, material events happening during the quarter, we shall provide that along with the reasons thereof. And if there is going to be any seasonal nature of activity, then it may supplement its financial results with information for a 12-month period. Because if it is going to be an agri income and you are going to have seasonal fluctuation, then the investors should understand that it is because of the seasonal business which is done by the company, there is this significant income which is during the monsoon period and there is a reduction primarily because there is no seasonal attribution for flow of income during the off season. For your investors to understand your fluctuating income, for doing a flux analysis, you are providing all these material seasonal variation. And if there is going to be any strike, lockout or pandemic like COVID, you shall provide such events or transactions which occurred before the quarter which is material in nature. So material is again a point which you have to define and see if you are satisfying that threshold. And dividend details, and if there is going to be any class shares where there is variation in terms of dividend or voting rights shall provide distinguished class of shares, nominal value for each class of shares. And if the dividend is paid on a pro rata basis for the shares allotted during the year, the allotment of shares during that period, even if it is ESOPs, you have to provide that, and the pro rata amount of dividend per share, the aggregate amount of dividend that you have paid shall be accounted for. And effect on financial results of material changes in the composition of the listed entity with regard to any acquisition. Say, for example, the company has acquired a foreign entity during the quarter, then the effect on the financial results shall be disclosed. And segment reporting shall also be provided in accordance with your AS 17 or IAS 108. So friends, to summarize, the disclosures that you will have in a listed entity in common or your standalone financial results, your standalone segment of your assets and liabilities, your standalone cash flows, then your consolidated financial results, consolidated statement of assets and liabilities, consolidated cash flows, appended with all the notes provided in your Reg 33 or Reg 52 as applicable to your listed entity. Then you will also provide your segment-wise details of your revenue for your standalone results, segment-wise details for your consolidated results, and financial results as per the format provided in your Reg 33, together with the extract more for the information in line with your Reg 33, providing for the disclosure of the financial results. So all these details have to be mandatorily provided. Further to which, Regulation 33(2) clearly says that it shall be certainly approved by the board, and the chairperson or managing director or whole-time director or any other person who is authorized by the board shall sign the financial results. So generally this is a question asked, that where there is no managing director for that particular meeting, and if any other director, can he sign the financial results? Our answer is, please provide necessary authority in your board resolution for the other director, otherwise he is not eligible to sign your financial results as per your Reg 33. Or your company secretary, while they do a secretarial audit, they will certainly qualify to this extent. And limited review report, where it is quarterly financial results, audited financial results means it shall be approved by the board, accompanied by your audited financial results. And quarterly or year-to-date financial results shall be submitted within 45 days from the end of each quarter. And if the listed entity has subsidiaries, a quarterly year-to-date consolidated financial results shall be submitted. Friends, please remember, pursuant to Uday Kotak Committee's report, this may is replaced with shall, which makes it mandatory for you to include your subsidiaries and provide the consolidated quarterly financial results. Previously, the quarterly audited annual financial results were being provided, but now it is mandatory that you not only provide your QTD standalone, but also your QTD consolidated financial results. Shall be glad to take your questions, friends. If you have any clarification on the subject, please feel free to raise. An audited financial results shall be submitted accompanied by your statement of impact on audit qualifications within 60 days. 60 days is the timeline when it comes to your annual financial results. If it is a modified opinion, then they shall also provide your auditor's amount, which we already discussed. There is going to be a quantifiable modified opinion. They have to state as to how much is the impact because of this. We took the example of the finance cost, which was not provided for or paid by the listed entity, in which case they have to say how much is the impact in the financial results. Because of this, how much is attributable to your reduction in the income, how actual reported income vis-a-vis what is your audited income, and how much is attributable to your PBT, PAT, EPS as the case may be. And in case of unmodified opinion, when there is a clean report given by your auditor, even then stock exchanges are not leaving you free hand. They ask you to provide a declaration while you submit the annual audited financial results, confirming that there is no qualified opinion given by the auditor. And audited financial results or limited review financial results, along with the note stating that the figures of last quarter are nothing but your balancing figure, shall also be added. So in the last quarter, you have to ensure that this is nothing but the balancing figure for the between the audited figure in respect of the full financial year and minus your year-to-date figures up to your third quarter shall also be disclosed along with other notes which you generally carry. And statement of assets and liabilities At the end of half year shall be provided. So quarterly it is not applicable. Cash flows for the half year shall be submitted. And quarterly consolidated financial results, at least 80% shall be subject to limited review when it comes to your consolidated revenue, assets or PAT. And in respect of your last quarter of the financial year, a note showing the aggregate effect of your material adjustments made in the result of that quarter shall also be disclosed. And friends, we already discussed that Form A, unmodified Form B, are substituted with your SIA, Statement of Impact on your Audit Qualification. And with regard to specified securities which are listed on SME exchange, there instead of quarterly, it is half yearly. We know that for SME, it is a half yearly disclosure and obligation. And statement on impact of audit qualification and annual audit report shall be reviewed by stock exchange. So they shall certainly review your report. That is the reason on May 27th, if you read the circular, it clearly says that the objective for which it was brought in was more to have standardized format, which will make it easy for them to review it and report if there is going to be any significant violation. And statutory auditor shall undertake a limited review of the audit of all the companies whose accounts are consolidated. So he shall not restrict the scope only to listed entity. If he is going to take care of the consolidated accounts for all the companies where accounts are consolidated as per AS 21, it is mandatory for him to extend the scope. So pretty wide though. Annual report contents. Friends, the timeline is very crucial and you have to certainly keep an audit trail. Say that the day when you have dispatched and you have a proof of your post office dispatch thing to all your shareholders, the same date, you have to certainly send it to your shareholders. Along with the notice of AGM, you have to send it to your stock exchange, where all the stock exchanges in which your securities are listed. And in the event of any change in the annual report, within 48 hours after the AGM, say for example in the AGM, lot of shareholders are raising several points and comments in your financial results, which may require some amendment to your annual report, in which case not only the changes to be submitted to stock exchange within 48 hours, you should also provide the reason for such changes. So an explanation with the changes shall also be appended to the document which you are submitting. And the contents of the annual report shall also contain your audited financial statements, your SIA, Statement on Impact of Audit Qualifications. First one is your standalone, then comes your consolidated financial statements, your cash flow statement in accordance with your AS3 or AS7, your both report, MD&A report, business responsibility report. Friends, previously it was for 500 listed entities, top 500 listed entities based on market cap. Now it is 1000 listed entities based on market cap, again thanks to the Kotak committee report. Of course, companies may feel free to do a voluntary reporting as well, which includes the companies which are below that 1000. And not only that, if you are listed on SME exchange platform, even then it is voluntary basis reporting. Let's look at Infosys BRR. You will provide all the basic details as you provide in your MGT 7 or your 9, and then you provide the financial details of the company. So friends, what is BRR? It talks about your conformity with compliance of ESG. What is ESG? Environment, social and governance impact, which the company has created. So that is the reason for social impact and its compliance. You are talking about your CSR spending and the percentage of spending and list of activities in which the CSR expenditure is incurred. And it need not be duplicated. You may refer to your CSR report as annexed to your board's report. And in other details where you will always provide for not only your company, your subsidiary companies as well. Does the company have any subsidiary company? And if they are involved in any BR initiative, you may have to also provide the details of those subsidiary companies which are participating in the BR initiatives, and it is extending its scope to other business partners with whom the listed entity is engaged. So thus, if there is any other entity, the company does business which participates in BR activities or initiatives, you shall provide the percentage of such entities which are providing for the BRR initiative, which means you have to certainly assess, first take the list of entities where you are doing the business, with whom you are doing the business venture, and then you have to check and take a confirmation from them as to how much they are contributing to the BR initiative, and you have to certainly keep that as an audit trail, because this forms part of your annual report, which is going to your stock exchange, and hence if you are going to mention 30%, you certainly need to create the necessary backup and underlying documents to confirm to this fact. And the director who is responsible for implementation of BR, which shall provide his DIN and designation, and the BR head, the employee who is responsible for the BR initiatives, you may have to state his name and designation as well with contact details. An annual report, regulation 34, stops by including in 34.3 stating that this shall also include any other disclosure as specified in Companies Act, which means your section 134 read with all the relevant rules you may have to comply with, along with other requirements as specified in Schedule 5. So what is specified in Schedule 5? Again, it's a big list. Related party disclosure, MD&A, corporate governance report, declaration on code of conduct, compliance certificate with regard to your corporate governance requirement fulfillment, and disclosure with regard to your DMAT unclaimed suspense account. Related party, you will provide the details of your holding company, subsidiary company, and any other investment by the loanee, that is the person who has availed loan in the shares of the parent company and subsidiary company when the company has made a loan or advance in the nature of loan. In addition to this, disclosure of any transaction with any promoter or promoter group which holds 10% or more of the shareholding in the listed entity in the format prescribed in relevant accounting standard for financial results. Which means you will certainly do this in conformity with the provisions in AS 18 if you're going to come under GAAP, or your Ind AS 24 if you're going to come under your IFRS. And the disclosure shall not be applicable for listed banks. Why? Because it is in their ordinary course of business. And disclosure of interest shall have the same meaning as specified under 184. We all are well aware of 184, where it is not applicable where there is a contract or arrangement which is entered into between one or more companies or bodies corporate, where the directors of such companies or two or more companies, whatever combination it is not exceeding 2% of your paid up share capital. And hence, if the director is in any way interested in any contract or arrangement by virtue of section 184 with a body corporate in which he is associated and holding more than 2% of shareholding, or he is a promoter, manager, CEO of that body corporate, or with a firm in which he is a partner owner, where he shall disclose the interest. So, in the case of, please remember friends, when it is a firm, there is no capital contribution limit set. So, directly you have to make a disclosure, and such person shall not participate in the meeting, which is more your 184 requirement. MD&A, you will provide various disclosures which also include your risk outlook. What is the future outlook of the company? Segment-wise performance, more in line with your AS 17. And discussion on financial performance with respect to operational performance. Friends, we all are aware that more than reading your balance sheet or statement of P&L account, when you are going to read MD&A, you will know a lot about the company's operational performance, business assignments, and where the company is heading to, because of the detailed write-up which is given by MD&A. Because there is a threadbare analysis to various aspects of your financials, and hence I always urge my teammates to read MD&A in an annual report, which will give you a complete grip of the company's business, the nature of activities, and a detailed analysis as to how you need to analyze and read the balance sheet. Risk will extend to not only your financial risk, it will talk about your operational risk, strategic risk, liquidity risk, credit risk, and details of significant changes in your key financial ratios. Any change in the return on net worth as compared to your immediately preceding financial year. And if there is a different accounting treatment which is followed for preparation of financial statements other than that which is the prescribed accounting standard, then the management owes an explanation, and they shall also confirm that this is in accordance with it sets out the true and fair view of the business transactions which they have entered into during the financial year. And corporate governance report talks about the code on corporate governance, which is ideally your corporate governance philosophy. What is your mantra on corporate governance? Your details about the board of directors, where you will talk about your composition of the board of directors, category, attendance, how many meetings they have attended during the year. Likewise, for your various committees, you will set out the terms of reference, composition, meetings held and attended by the various committee members, and who is the chairperson of each committee. And for stakeholders grievance committee, you will also provide the chairperson, the NED chairperson, non-executive director, who is the chairperson of the committee, and how many shareholders complaints were received during the year, how many were not resolved, and how many are pending as at the end of the quarter. And remuneration of directors. There you will discuss about the remuneration of your NEDs, your fixed performance package, your variable incentive package, remuneration which you pay to your directors, independent directors, and the remuneration policy you may like to give a reference to your web link. Because under your functional website, the remuneration of directors shall also be hosted on your website, and hence you may like to provide the web link reference other than again copying and pasting your remuneration details in the annual report. In your general body meeting details, you will provide about your special resolutions passed during the last 3 years, postal ballot. Of those special resolutions, how many resolutions were by way of postal ballot? Because we know that there are mandatory items which have to be done certainly by way of postal ballot in accordance with Companies Act. So you will say how many such items, how many special resolutions were passed by way of postal ballot, not only for the past, for the future also. It says that if there are any special resolutions which are proposed to be passed by postal ballot, you may have to say. Why do they provide proposed special resolutions, friends? This is for investors to watch out, for them to whether buy or sell the stocks. They want upfront information to be provided in the annual report, and hence you need to provide the venue of the general meetings for the last 3 years as well, and the person who has conducted postal ballot, who is the scrutinizer for your postal ballot. All these details you may have to set forth. General shareholder information, where you will provide the market high, low for the last 12 months, your Nifty index, your CRISIL index, your credit rating information, your shareholders meetings, the venue of the meeting. So all the general shareholders details have to be provided, your ADR, GDRs, and your dividend payout, and what is the information with regard to your IEPF. All those details have to be set forth in your general shareholders information. And any non-compliance of CG report has to be provided. And discretionary requirements. There are certain corporate governance requirements which are like voluntary basis, which are not mandatory in LODR, but more for good governance. Companies adopt that. Companies like Infosys, they do adopt such discretionary requirements also. So they will say to the shareholders that these are not mandatory, but still we have done, and hence they receive corporate governance award as well from the ministry. And disclosure of compliance with corporate governance requirements as set out in Regulation 17 to 27, which we have discussed in the previous sessions about your committees, your composition of board of directors, your independent directors, whether they are satisfying their requirements. So all these, more importantly, your 23 related party transaction vigil mechanism. So all those details you will provide. And 46(2)(b), we are again aware, which talks about your website details. 46 clearly says that you have to maintain a functional website listed entity, and in the website, what are the details that you have to say? What are the policies you have to upload? So confirmation on the disclosures which you have posted on the website shall be provided in your CG report, and any other disclosure which you feel is more appropriate to be intimated to your shareholders. And there shall be a joint declaration signed by your CEO, and the members of the board shall confirm that the board and senior management have confirmed with the code of conduct of the board and senior management. So it is a declaration by CEO as a joint confirmation by the board and senior management. And there shall be a compliance certificate from auditors or practicing company secretary to confirm the compliance with your corporate governance norms. And demat or unclaimed suspense account. What is this, friends? If there is going to be any shares which are unclaimed and they are lying in your account, it was mandated by SEBI that you shall create a separate account which is called USA, unclaimed suspense account, and you shall certainly make necessary attempt that these shareholders claim their shares. Otherwise, it will still lie in that account and it shall remain frozen and the dividend shall be kept in abeyance to those shares. Say I have 700 shares in my listed entity. Those shares are not claimed by them. So my total shareholding when the dividend is going to be say 1 lakh. For 700 shares at rupee 1, which is 700, 1 lakh minus 700 only I will be disbursing as dividend. And this I have to state it in the annual report, and I have to make necessary steps to ensure that these shareholders are identified and traced, so that this 700 rupees or 700 shares should be reduced to the extent that these shares are not lying in your unclaimed suspense account. That is the intent. So the voting on these shares shall remain frozen till the rightful owner of these shares claim the shares. Who will you determine the rightful owner of the shares? When they are able to provide necessary documents to evince proof that they are the real claimants of these shares, then you will certainly release them from the unclaimed suspense account and provide the necessary claim to those shareholders. Finally, annual information memorandum. Every listed entity shall submit an aim in the manner specified by the board. Friends, this, as may be specified, is yet to be specified by the board. However, we are aware that SEBI had come out with various recommendatory disclosures, and discussion paper was also emerged, but that was more in the light of your ICDR regulations, where they said that within 135 days, these listed entities, as approved by the board, every time when they are making that proceed, first information memorandum will be issued, after which every year they shall provide this material information in the form of annual disclosure to the stock exchange. But in LODR, we are awaiting the prescribed format, friends. So with this, we are concluding the fourth part of our 7th corporate law webinar series on SEBI ICDR. Today, we discussed in detail about the financial results, your quarterly financial results or audited financial results. What are the annexes to be submitted, and what are the aspects which are material in nature that you have to certainly take cognizance of. Very important provision, not only for students, professionals for reading and understanding, more importantly for the listed entities to comply with, because this particular regulation is taken seriously by SEBI for compliance. And regulation 34, annual report and its contents. What are the various annexes which you have to append to your annual report? And when you are required to disseminate this information, immediately when the same is sent to your shareholders, you have to send it to the stock exchanges as well, including the changes if any, with necessary explanation. And finally 35, which is your annual information memorandum. Thank you very much, friends. Take care. Stay safe.